If you've ever hiked alone in remote wilderness, Marcus Williams's story will change how you think about what's watching from the tree line. On October 14th, something began systematically herding Marcus Williams deeper into the Olympic Peninsula wilderness. This wasn't a chance encounter with a wild animal. This was calculated predation using methods that would terrify experienced hunters. Marcus Williams had been hiking those forests for 15 years. He was the kind of outdoorsman who knew which ridge offered cell service, which creek led back to civilization, and exactly where to find shelter when weather turned deadly. His expertise had saved him dozens of times before. None of it mattered, because what stalked him that October night had studied human behavior patterns for generations. The first sign came at dusk, something every solo hiker dreads: a deep, resonant wood knock echoing from the ridgeline behind him. Not the random crack of a falling branch. This was deliberate, rhythmic, a sound that made his survival instincts scream danger. Then another knock, closer. Marcus quickened his pace, but the sounds followed, maintaining perfect distance. When he stopped to listen, they stopped. When he moved, they moved. Something was pacing him through the forest canopy, staying just out of sight. By midnight, Marcus realized the terrifying truth. This wasn't random animal behavior. Something intelligent was herding him deeper into the wilderness, using tactics that would make military strategists take notes. What happened next should terrify anyone who trusts their wilderness experience to keep them safe. Marcus tried everything his 15 years of training had taught him. He backtracked toward his entry point, but found the trail blocked by a massive fallen tree that hadn't been there hours before. He attempted to navigate by the stars, but the canopy had somehow thickened, blocking all celestial reference points. He followed the creek downstream toward civilization, but discovered the water had been diverted around strategically placed boulders, leading him in circles back to the same clearing. Every escape route Marcus knew by heart had been systematically eliminated. His decades of wilderness expertise became worthless because something had spent weeks rewriting the rules of the forest itself. Think about that. An experienced outdoorsman with 15 years of survival knowledge was outmaneuvered by something that understood human behavior better than he understood the wilderness. His body was found 3 weeks later, 12 miles from any established trail, positioned in a way that defied every known predator pattern. The location was so remote that search teams needed helicopters just to reach it. Yet somehow, Marcus had been carried there with surgical precision. The discovery sent shockwaves through the search and rescue community. Because Marcus Williams wasn't the first experienced hiker to vanish under these exact circumstances. He was part of a pattern that's been documented across the Pacific Northwest for decades. A pattern that suggests something far more terrifying than random animal attacks. This creature doesn't just encounter humans, it hunts them. And if you understand the warning signs, you might be the first to survive what happened to Marcus Williams. Have you ever felt watched while hiking alone? That oppressive feeling that something massive is tracking your every move. Let me know in the comments, because what you experienced might have been the first stage of this hunting method. The hunting method begins long before physical contact. Analysis of thermal footage and audio recordings reveals a systematic campaign of psychological warfare designed to isolate and disorient the target. The creature initiates contact through strategic vocalizations. These aren't random territorial calls. They're calculated harassment tactics. The infamous Sierra sounds, recorded over multiple nights in the 1970s, demonstrate a pattern of escalating audio pressure. The whoops start distant, almost curious. Then they multiply. Multiple sources, different pitches, creating the illusion of a pack surrounding the victim. But here's where the intelligence becomes terrifying. The vocalizations aren't just random noise. They're designed to drive the target in a specific direction, away from established trails, away from cell coverage, away from any possibility of rescue. Sarah Mitchell experienced this firsthand during her 2019 backpacking trip through the Cascade Range. Her journal, recovered after her disappearance, documents 3 nights of escalating harassment. Night 1, distant howls from the north. Night 2, the howls had moved to encircle her campsite. Night 3, the sounds were coming from directly overhead in the canopy. The psychological impact is immediate and devastating. Victims report identical sensations. The oppressive feeling of being watched. The certainty that something massive is moving parallel to their path, just beyond visual range. Sleep becomes impossible. Rational decision-making deteriorates. This is exactly what the creature wants. A disoriented, exhausted target making desperate choices. The harassment escalates through what researchers call proximity testing. The creature moves closer with each interaction, gauging the victim's awareness and response capability. Tree knocks become thunderous impacts against massive trunks. Whoops transform into ear-splitting screams that seem to come from impossible heights. Thermal footage from the Olympic project captures this behavior in chilling detail. A massive heat signature pacing the perimeter of a campsite for over 4 hours. Never approaching directly, never revealing itself completely. Just maintaining that suffocating presence that erodes the victim's psychological defenses. But here's what matters. You won't see this creature. You'll hear it first. The wood knocks start distant, then they multiply, not from one direction, from multiple sources. North, east, behind you. Your brain struggles to process the geometry. How is it in 3 places at once? That's the point. The vocalizations aren't random. They're designed to disorient. The creature demonstrates sophisticated understanding of human behavior patterns. It knows we seek high ground when threatened. It knows we follow water sources when lost. It knows we make noise when panicked. Every natural human survival instinct becomes a tactical advantage for the predator. Most terrifying is the evidence of terrain manipulation. Broken branches blocking established trails. Rock cairns moved or destroyed to eliminate navigation markers. Creek crossings suddenly impassable due to strategically placed debris. The creature isn't just following its prey, it's actively reshaping the environment to control movement patterns. Lisa Williams had hiked the Pacific Crest Trail section near Snoqualmie Pass dozens of times. She knew every switchback. But on her final hike, familiar landmarks were wrong. The creek crossing she'd used for years was blocked by a massive fallen tree. The alternate route she tried was blocked too. Every path led deeper into unmarked wilderness. The stalking phase can last for days. The creature exhibits patience that defies normal predator behavior. It's not driven by immediate hunger or territorial aggression. This is methodical hunting. The psychological warfare continues until the target reaches complete exhaustion and disorientation. Daniel Torres documented this process during his final days in the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest. His increasingly frantic journal entries describe feeling herded like livestock toward an unknown destination. The creature would appear briefly at the edges of his vision, always behind him, always driving him forward, into more remote terrain. The stalking culminates when the victim reaches what investigators call the kill zone, an isolated location where the creature has maximum tactical advantage and the target has no escape routes. Dense forest with limited visibility, steep terrain that prevents rapid movement, no nearby trails or landmarks that might attract other hikers. By this point, the psychological warfare has achieved its purpose. The victim is physically exhausted, mentally shattered, and completely isolated from any possibility of rescue. The creature has successfully transformed a confident outdoorsman into terrified prey, ready for the next phase of the hunt. So, here's the question that should terrify every solo hiker. If 15 years of wilderness experience couldn't save Marcus Williams, what makes you think your knowledge would be enough? What would you do differently? I'm genuinely curious. Let me know your survival strategy in the comments. The stalking phase can last for days. The creature exhibits patience that defies normal predator behavior. It's not driven by immediate hunger or territorial aggression. This is strategic hunting. And when the moment arrives, the kill itself becomes the most revealing evidence of all. What makes a Bigfoot attack distinct from every known predator becomes clear through forensic analysis of the few crime scenes that have been properly documented. This isn't the frenzied mauling of a bear or the calculated bite patterns of a mountain lion. This is something far more terrifying. The creature weighs between 800 and 1,000 pounds, nearly half a ton of bone-crushing predator. This mass creates devastating force that human bone structure simply cannot withstand. But the killing method isn't random brutality. It's surgical precision disguised as overwhelming power. Track cast analysis reveals the anatomical specialization that makes this possible. The creature's foot has a flexible joint in the middle that lets it bend in ways human feet can't. This flexibility means it can move silently across any terrain, snapping twigs, displaced rocks, none of it. It can approach within striking distance without alerting you. Stop and think about what this means. This predator can approach within striking distance in complete silence. The killing blow targets the torso with devastating efficiency. Forensic reconstruction suggests the creature uses its enormous hands to deliver a crushing embrace that instantly collapses the ribcage. The victim's lungs are compressed beyond function. The heart stops from massive trauma. Death occurs within seconds, often before the victim can even scream. This explains why so few attack sites show evidence of struggle. No defensive wounds on the hands, no torn clothing from attempts to escape, no scattered gear indicating a prolonged fight. The overwhelming force is applied so quickly that the victim has no opportunity to resist. Michael Reeves experienced this method during his 2018 solo camping trip in Olympic National Park. His campsite was found undisturbed except for a single massive handprint in the mud beside his collapsed tent. The print measured 14 inches long, with finger impressions showing incredible depth. The pressure required to create those impressions would crush human bones like twigs. The creature's body is built for killing. Its skin acts like natural armor, thick enough to deflect branches, rocks, even desperate knife wounds. Victims have no way to inflict damage, even in their final moments. The predator can charge through dense undergrowth at full speed without injury. But the most chilling aspect is the surgical precision behind what appears to be brute force. The creature doesn't simply attack in rage. It positions itself for maximum leverage. It strikes at the optimal angle to ensure instant incapacitation. It applies exactly the force necessary to kill without creating excessive blood spatter or noise that might attract attention. Jennifer Walsh's disappearance in the Cascade Range provides disturbing evidence of this precision. Search teams found her backpack hanging 12 feet up in a Douglas fir, completely undamaged. Her hiking boots were placed side by side at the base of the tree. No blood, no torn fabric, no signs of violence. Just the eerie organization that suggests the creature took time to arrange the scene after the kill. The timing of attacks follows a predictable pattern. The creature strikes during the victim's most vulnerable moment, usually deep sleep when reaction time is slowest. Sometimes during activities that require focus and limit awareness, like setting up camp or filtering water. Never during daylight hours when visibility might compromise the creature's advantage. The forensic evidence suggests the creature approaches from behind and above whenever possible, using its superior height and arm reach to deliver the killing blow before the victim can turn around. The attack angle prevents the victim from seeing their attacker, which may explain why so few credible eyewitness accounts of actual attacks exist. Track measurements indicate the creature can cover 20 feet in a single stride when attacking. This explosive speed, combined with complete silence, creates an impossible scenario for human survival. By the time the victim senses danger, the creature is already in killing range. The signature kill concludes with immediate body removal. The creature doesn't feed at the attack site, doesn't leave the body exposed to scavengers. This isn't about hunger or territorial display. The systematic removal suggests intelligence and planning that extends far beyond the kill itself. Within minutes of death, the victim vanishes completely. No blood trail, no drag marks, no broken vegetation indicating the direction of travel. The creature's strength allows it to carry a human body without leaving detectable evidence of transport. This seamless transition from killing to concealment reveals the true horror of the hunting method. The creature has perfected every aspect of human predation. But theory becomes undeniable when confronted with documented evidence. The most thoroughly documented case of the hunting method occurred in Washington's Mill Creek watershed during the autumn of 1982, a case that would establish the template for every attack that followed. What happened in those remote woods would shake even experienced investigators to their core. The case was quietly closed with the official explanation of bear attack with unusual circumstances. But the evidence told a far more terrifying story of intelligent predation that continues to this day. The Mill Creek incident established the template for systematic human predation, but what makes it truly unique is how it revealed every phase of the creature's hunting method, from initial stalking to the methodical disposal that follows each kill. Paul Freeman worked for the Forest Service. He was checking timber in the remote area north of Mount St. Helens. The area was closed to the public after the volcano erupted. Perfect hunting ground for something that wanted privacy. Freeman knew the wilderness. He spotted the signs right away. Fresh tree breaks 12 feet up. Massive footprints in creek beds where no human should be. But what made his blood run cold were the drag marks. They led away from what looked like an abandoned campsite. Freeman radioed for backup. What they found next would haunt every investigator involved. The campsite told a terrifying story. An expensive mountaineering tent was flattened, not torn or clawed, crushed straight down with massive force. The tent poles were built for extreme weather. They were bent at impossible angles. Inside, the sleeping bag showed a compression pattern that would become the signature of these attacks. Freeman stared at the scene in disbelief. Whatever did this had to weigh over 1,000 pounds. Freeman made plaster casts of the tracks. The detail was incredible. You could see individual skin pores in the plaster. Then came the discovery that changed everything. The cast showed 4 different creatures. This wasn't one animal. This was pack hunting. The implications hit the search team like a punch to the gut. Other Forest Service workers came to secure the scene. What they found was immediately classified. The drag marks went straight up a nearly vertical cliff. Rock climbers with full gear would struggle on that cliff. Whatever carried the victim up there had impossible strength. One investigator looked up at that cliff face and whispered, "Nothing should be able to do that." The official report was heavily blacked out and buried in Forest Service files. Multiple witnesses gave statements. Search and rescue teams described feeling watched from the trees above. Their radios stopped working properly. Compasses spun wildly. Navigation became nearly impossible. The experienced rescue team was rattled. These were men who'd worked disasters and recovered bodies for decades. They'd never encountered anything like this. The most chilling evidence was the victim's journal. It was found wedged in rocks halfway up the cliff. The journal documented 3 weeks of harassment before the attack. The final entries were written in frantic handwriting. They described sounds coming from impossible locations. The victim knew something was driving him toward a specific place. Reading those journal entries, investigators realized they were looking at a calculated hunt spanning weeks. The journal entries matched the psychological warfare patterns documented in other cases. Night 1 described distant wood knocks and the feeling of being observed. By night 15, the victim was reporting coordinated vocalizations from multiple sources and the systematic blocking of potential escape routes through fallen trees and rock slides. The final entry, dated the morning of the attack, contained a single sentence. "It's here. God help me. It's finally here." The handwriting was barely legible. The victim had known exactly what was about to happen. But the skin ridge evidence was even more disturbing. These ridge patterns couldn't be faked. A hoaxer would need to press real skin into the soil with crushing force, something no human could do. Lab tests proved the impressions came from living tissue, not carved stamps or rubber molds. The forensics expert who analyzed the casts had worked murder scenes for 20 years. He'd never seen anything like this. Most importantly, the ridge patterns were identical across multiple sites throughout Grays Harbor County over several months. This proved the attacks weren't random. The same creature was systematically hunting across hundreds of square miles. The realization was terrifying. They were dealing with an intelligent predator that had claimed territory larger than most states. When the body was finally found, it showed calculated intelligence that chilled investigators to the bone. The victim had been placed in a natural depression. Fallen logs were arranged to hide the body. The location was invisible from search helicopters, but it was positioned where spring floods would eventually wash away any remaining evidence. This wasn't animal behavior. This was criminal-level planning. The Mill Creek incident became the template for all future cases. Extended stalking, psychological warfare to isolate and exhaust the victim, overwhelming force during the attack, and finally, methodical concealment to keep the hunting method hidden. The case was quietly closed with the official explanation of bear attack with unusual circumstances. But the evidence told a far more terrifying story of intelligent predation that continues to this day. The systematic disposal of human remains demonstrates intelligence that rivals the most sophisticated criminal minds. The creature initiates contact through strategic vocalizations. These aren't random territorial calls. They're calculated harassment tactics. The creature initiates contact through strategic vocalizations. These aren't random territorial calls. They're deliberate harassment tactics. Bodies discovered in connection with these attacks share impossible characteristics that defy conventional search and rescue protocols. Victims are found in locations that should be unreachable, given their last known positions and the timeline of their disappearance. This isn't random scattering by scavengers or natural decomposition processes. This is deliberate placement designed to avoid detection and investigation. The missing 411 connection becomes undeniable when examining body recovery patterns. David Paulides documented over 1,600 cases of people vanishing in national parks under mysterious circumstances. The subset that involves eventual body recovery shows consistent anomalies that match the creature's disposal method. Victims are found at elevations far above their intended hiking routes, often on cliff faces or ridgelines that would require technical climbing equipment to reach. The physical condition of the remains shows no evidence of the trauma that would result from a fall or animal attack. Instead, they appear to have been carefully transported and positioned. The creature's immense strength allows for vertical transport that defies human capability. Analysis of the Mill Creek cliff face revealed no equipment marks, rope burns, or anchor points that would indicate mechanical assistance. The victim was carried straight up a nearly vertical rock wall, using nothing but raw physical power. The creature places bodies where they'll eventually be found, but only after nature destroys the evidence. A cave system, a cliff ledge, somewhere that spring snowmelt or a forest fire will expose the body years later. By then, decomposition has erased the proof of what really happened. The intelligence behind this concealment method becomes clear when examining the locations chosen. Remote enough to avoid immediate detection, but accessible enough that remains will eventually be found by hunters or hikers years later. The creature understands human search patterns and deliberately places bodies outside standard grid searches. This pattern repeats across dozens of cases. Bodies found 18 months later in caves requiring rappelling equipment. Remains positioned as if the victim crawled there to shelter. No blood trail, no drag marks, no broken vegetation. The timing is always the same. Discovery occurs during specific weather spring snowmelt, flash floods, forest fires, conditions that destroy forensic evidence. This systematic timing suggests the creature monitors environmental conditions and positions bodies where natural forces will complete the concealment process. The disposal method isn't just about hiding evidence. It's about creating plausible alternative explanations for the death that deflect investigation away from predation. The creature demonstrates sophisticated understanding of human investigation techniques. Bodies are positioned to suggest accidental death, exposure, or natural causes. Personal effects are scattered in patterns that imply the victim became lost and died from environmental factors rather than attack. Most chilling is the evidence of multiple disposal sites used by the same creature across vast territories. The identical positioning methods documented from Washington to Northern California suggest a learned behavior passed down through generations or shared among multiple individuals. The concealment phase represents the final evolution of the hunting method. The creature has perfected not just the killing of human prey, but the complete elimination of evidence that might expose its predatory behavior. Each disposal follows the same methodical approach that characterizes every aspect of the hunt. The vanishing act ensures the hunting method remains hidden, allowing the creature to continue its systematic predation without detection or interference from human authorities. The 1982 tracks, discovered in Washington's Elk Wallow region, provided the most compelling evidence of coordinated pack hunting behavior ever documented. What searchers found in that remote valley fundamentally changed our understanding of how these creatures operate as systematic predators. The discovery occurred during a routine wildlife survey in the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest. Biologists investigating elk migration patterns stumbled upon a series of impressions that defied every known animal in the Pacific Northwest. The tracks weren't random wanderings. They showed deliberate coordination between multiple massive individuals working together to control terrain and funnel prey toward a predetermined kill zone. The track sequence revealed at least 3 distinct creatures moving in formation across the valley floor. The lead individual, identified by tracks measuring 18 inches in length, had positioned itself at the narrow end of the valley where elk would naturally attempt to escape. 2 smaller individuals, still massive by human standards at 16 inches each, had taken flanking positions on the ridgelines above. The footprints revealed the true scale of these predators. The impressions were so deep, they crushed the soil in ways no normal animal could, each step driven by over 800 pounds of concentrated force. The tracks showed they had stood in position for a long time, waiting. This wasn't a quick hunt. This was a patient ambush. The creatures had chosen this spot like military commanders. The valley was a perfect trap. Dense forest blocked 3 sides. Animals could only escape through one narrow opening. That's exactly where the biggest creature waited. The elk had nowhere to run. What searchers found next was terrifying. A circular area 12 feet across where coordinated slaughter had occurred. Elk hair and blood everywhere. But then the creatures had cleaned up. They collected the bone pieces. They scraped away the bloody dirt. They removed every trace of what they had done. The methodical cleanup suggested intelligence far beyond instinctual predation. These creatures understood the importance of eliminating evidence. They knew that leaving obvious kill sites would attract human investigation. The disposal of organic material was so thorough that only microscopic analysis revealed what had occurred in that depression. Track analysis around the kill zone showed the coordination continued during cleanup. While one creature handled the kill, the others stood guard. Their tracks formed a circle around the bloody area. They watched for danger while their partner worked. The aftermath showed how smart these creatures were. The tracks split into 3 different directions away from the kill site. They made it impossible to follow them. Each path crossed rocks or creek beds where footprints would disappear. Forest Service personnel who documented the scene were ordered to classify their findings immediately. Official reports described the evidence as unusual predator activity requiring further study. But internal communications, later leaked through Freedom of Information Act requests, revealed the true scope of what had been discovered. The Elk Wallow tracks provided the first concrete proof that these creatures operated as organized hunters rather than solitary wanderers. The coordination required to execute such an ambush demonstrated communication abilities and tactical planning that challenged every assumption about their intelligence level. Most significantly, the evidence suggested this wasn't an isolated incident. Similar track patterns were documented across the Pacific Northwest over subsequent months, always following the same coordinated approach. The creatures had developed and perfected a systematic hunting method that they applied consistently across their territory. The elk wallow discovery connected directly to the human disappearances occurring in the same region. The tactical coordination used against elk was being adapted for human prey. The same funnel techniques, the same elimination of evidence, the same methodical approach to predation that left investigators with more questions than answers about what was hunting in our forests. But the most terrifying aspect of these cases wasn't the coordination itself. It was the evidence of learning, adaptation, and deliberate strategy that suggested something far more intelligent than a simple predator. The evidence from Mill Creek and Elk Wallow reveals a predator that operates far beyond instinctual behavior. This wasn't instinct. This was strategy. This was learning. This isn't random predation driven by hunger or territorial aggression. This is calculated hunting strategy executed by a creature that thinks like a human. The creature learns human behavior patterns. It watches hiking routes. It studies where people camp. It knows solo hikers are easier targets than groups. It waits for bad weather when visibility drops and sounds are muffled. Perfect hunting conditions. The creature uses tools during hunts. It breaks branches to block escape routes. It triggers rock slides to cut off retreat paths. It diverts creeks to force victims toward ambush points. The creature doesn't just rely on strength. It changes the environment to guarantee a kill. The hunting method has evolved to counter modern technology. Trail cameras malfunction in hunting areas, capturing only brief, blurred images before going dark. GPS devices lose satellite connection. Cell phones show full bars, but calls won't connect. This isn't coincidence. The creature has learned that our technology is our lifeline, so it systematically eliminates our ability to call for help or navigate to safety. When you need rescue most, you're completely cut off from the outside world. The creature claims territory like a military commander. Certain areas see repeated disappearances following identical patterns. The creature picks hunting grounds that give it every advantage while staying away from human patrols. These territories are chosen carefully. Remote access limits witnesses. The terrain funnels victims toward kill zones. Natural barriers prevent escape once the hunt begins. The creature reads the landscape better than experienced soldiers. The forensic evidence reveals the creature's ability to learn from each encounter. Early attacks showed evidence of struggle and defensive wounds. Recent cases demonstrate increasingly efficient kills with no opportunity for victim resistance. The creature has refined its technique through practice and observation. Multiple creatures communicate during coordinated hunts. The vocalizations recorded during pack hunts aren't random noise. They're tactical communications. The creatures share information about where the prey is located, which escape routes are blocked, when to attack. The creature understands human investigation methods. It cleans crime scenes to eliminate evidence. It positions bodies to look like natural deaths. It scatters personal items to make investigators think something else happened. Most chilling is how the creature adapts when humans fight back. Hikers started traveling in larger groups for safety, so attacks shifted to target individuals who separated from the group. Campers started maintaining larger fires. The creature learned to attack during brief moments when fires burned low. This creature thinks, it plans, it learns from every hunt and gets better. It's not a wild animal killing out of hunger. It's something intelligent, something that has spent generations learning how to hunt humans, and it's getting more efficient with each kill. The hunting method represents the culmination of evolutionary adaptation, specifically designed to exploit human weaknesses and overcome our technological advantages. Marcus Williams knew those forests. 15 years of hiking experience, every escape route memorized. None of it mattered because the creature systematically defeated his expertise. His go-to emergency shelter spot? Blocked by a freshly fallen tree. His backup water source? Diverted by strategically placed boulders. His shortcut to the main trail? Cut off by a rock slide that hadn't been there the day before. Every single fallback plan from 15 years of wilderness experience was neutralized with surgical precision. The creature had studied human hiking patterns. It knew exactly which routes experienced hikers would choose when panicked. It had spent weeks preparing countermeasures for each possible escape attempt. Marcus's expertise became his weakness because the predator understood human wilderness behavior better than humans themselves. Marcus became part of a pattern that continues today. Every year, hundreds of people vanish in remote areas under circumstances that mirror his disappearance. The Missing 411 database documents over 1,600 cases in national parks alone, cases with identical warning signs to the hunting method we've analyzed. The forensic evidence is undeniable. Track casts from Mill Creek and Elk Wallow show anatomical characteristics that don't match any known North American animal. The dermal ridge patterns are identical across cases separated by hundreds of miles and decades of time. The psychological impact on victims matches clinical PTSD profiles documented in stalking research: hypervigilance, sleep deprivation, disorientation, and the systematic breakdown of rational decision-making. This isn't speculation. This is documented behavior. This is a pattern that repeats with such consistency that it demands explanation. Before I give you these warning signs, I need you to make me a promise. If you recognize any of these patterns during your next wilderness trip, you will immediately retreat to populated areas. Don't be a hero. Don't try to get footage. Just survive. Can you commit to that? Type, "I promise," in the comments if you're willing to prioritize your life over your curiosity. If you recognize the warning signs, your survival depends on breaking the pattern. Phase 1. The stalking begins. Wood knocks from multiple sources. Vocalizations from impossible heights. Trails blocked by fallen trees that weren't there before. GPS malfunctions. Cell signals disappear. Phase 2. Psychological isolation. Sleep becomes impossible. Navigation markers moved or destroyed. Creek crossings suddenly impassable. You make desperate choices toward more remote terrain. Phase 3. The kill zone. Complete silence. The harassment stops because the creature no longer needs to herd you. Something massive waits directly above. Here's how to break the pattern. Immediate survival protocol. If you hear coordinated wood knocks from multiple directions, you have less than 30 minutes before the harassment escalates. Retreat immediately toward populated areas, never attempt to wait it out. Technology. Backup. Download offline maps before entering documented hunting territories. Carry a satellite communicator, not just a cell phone. When your GPS starts spinning wildly, that's your final warning. Group safety. Never separate from your group, even for bathroom breaks. The creature targets isolated individuals within larger parties. Maintain contact every 15 minutes when hiking in high-risk areas. Fire protocol. Build fires large enough to create a 20-foot circle of light. The creature won't approach bright illumination, but it will wait for the fire to burn low. Maintain fuel throughout the night. Documentation. Record everything. Audio of unusual vocalizations. Photos of blocked trails. GPS coordinates where technology fails. The more evidence we gather, the harder it becomes for this predator to operate undetected. But understanding the hunting method only deepens the real mystery. What is this creature? The forensic evidence suggests something far larger and more intelligent than any known primate. The anatomical anomalies don't match Gigantopithecus or any extinct species in the fossil record. We're looking at something that shouldn't exist according to everything we know about evolution. Why does it hunt humans specifically? Bears and mountain lions kill out of hunger or territorial defense. This creature hunts with strategy, patience, and purpose that rivals criminal investigation techniques. It coordinates with other individuals. It conceals evidence with methodical intelligence. This isn't predation driven by survival instinct. And perhaps most disturbing, the hunting method is evolving. The cases from the 1980s show different tactical approaches than disappearances documented today. The creature is learning, adapting, becoming more sophisticated with each generation. The question isn't whether it will continue hunting. The question is what we're really dealing with in our forests. That's where we go next.